Chapter 2 of Part 2, Jesus designated at his baptism by John. Jesus now comes forth from his long obscurity. We have seen him only once before since his infancy. Now he comes to the Jordan to be baptized of John. Let us collate the records. Jesus reappears, Matthew 3, Mark 1. Matthew's account, chapter 3, 13, is this. Then cometh Jesus from Galilee to Jordan unto John to be baptized of him. But John forbade him, saying, I have need to be baptized of thee, and comest thou to me? And Jesus answering said unto him, Suffer it to be so now, for thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he suffered him, and Jesus, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened unto him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove, and lighting upon him. And lo, a voice from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. So it's a Gnostic sort of experience that can happen with anyone, really. But see, separate individuals. But we've brought up the fact that the Son is that the Father is the provider, the center, the pole. So we're not necessarily saying that that God's their actual parent. Necessarily, when people say that, the Spirit of God, probably Ruch Kadush, so Gabriel, and the Son, the person attached to the house. Anyways, Mark 1:9 says, And it came to pass in those days that that Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized of John in Jordan. And straightway coming up out of the water, the unconscious, the emotional perhaps, he saw the heavens opened, and the Spirit, like a dove, descending upon him. The dove's a symbol of innocence. And there came a voice from heaven saying, Thou art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And we had this now you were begotten talk in the David and stuff like this, so it's nothing new. Luke's narrative, chapter 3:21, is this. Now when all the people were baptized, it came to pass that Jesus also being baptized, and praying, the heaven was opened, and the Holy Ghost descended in a bodily shape like a dove upon him. And a voice came from heaven, which said, Thou art my beloved Son, in thee I am well pleased. Luke adds verse 23, and Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age. Kind of like what's attributed to Zarathustra and his experience when he was 30. But Jesus is the prayer. And just like the Quran talks about that the believer and the prayer and stuff like this, the angelic presence comes. The Sakina is sometimes so experienced. You return to God well pleased and well pleasing. John does not give a narrative of the ceremony of the baptism, but records the testimony of John the Baptist, chapter 1, verse 29. Here is the fact that Jesus was baptized of John in Jordan. To this, all the 4 New Testament historians testify. Well, all that means is they investigated a little bit rather than just sheerly making up their sacred history. But it's not quite what we mean as a historian. They give no intimation of the place. That was not important. In the opening of the public ministry of Jesus, we may take occasion to say that nowhere do we find these 4 writers striving to make out a case, striving to agree in details of narrative, or ministering anything to superstition. Well, a lot of things are survivals, but no portrait No autograph, no description of the physique of Jesus is preserved by them. They do not attempt to invest any place in which he did anything with a sacredness which should make it the focus of superstition, but they tell their story with the artlessness of guileless children and leave the impression to deepen and brighten in the mind of the reader. No, that's probably overshooting, isn't it? We shall strive to deal with the case in the same spirit of simple, unaffected reverence for nature and supernature, feeling that we have no more right to ignore the one than to set aside the other. And I'm not sure if I'm going to finish this page, so Sakoth here. The fact that Jesus submitted voluntarily to John's baptism is wholly unaccountable on certain dogmas long assumed to be unquestionable. The commentators who adopt these dogmas follow one another in a dreary march around what they suppose to be a difficulty, which they really make into a difficulty for other minds, but which they do not remove. The simple statement of John himself ought to throw much light on the subject. He says that he should be made known to Israel, therefore am I come baptizing with water. That seems quite explicit. The hope of a Messiah was intensifying its element of expectation when John's ministry opened. Because they knew there was going to be a prophetic mission going on, and they knew they'd been a while without an authentic Messiah, and there were fake ones going around. So he felt the depths of his great nature stirred with a call to arouse his people to a preparation of heart for the great advent. He did not entertain those thoroughly spiritualistic views of the Messiah's kingdom, which have since obtained. He believed in his personal reign, a great spiritual improvement, a discrimination, a dividing, a burning up of the chaff of his own nation, a cleansing of the Jewish people for the establishment of a purified theocracy to be administrated by the Christ in proper person.